Hey, welcome everybody. It's Dave Cooper, and this is a Product Spotlight Wednesday. And today we have a great show for you. We have Doug Pill on from Prefab Logic joining us. So hold on to your hats because we got a lot to cover today. We are going to cover everything that you need to know to be successful with modular construction. And we're going to have one of the best experts in the industry on. So with that said, we are live on 3 locations: LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Please hit that like button. And if you're not a subscriber to our YouTube channel, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It helps us grow our industry and grow everything that we do in regards to offsite, modular, volumetric, panelized construction. So with that said, why don't we bring in Doug and start this conversation off right? Hey, Doug, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Dave. Pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. So, Doug, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. In fact, I think we first met. It wasn't at the World of Modular down in Orlando. I popped into your booth and I said, I want to talk to you.
It was pre-COVID for sure. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So, since then, you've had a lot going on in everything in your industry. But, I think what's really interesting is you really are on the leading edge of driving this industry forward when it comes to a better way of doing things, right? There is a better way. And I know you have the hashtag, so I'm going to put it up there. So to kick this off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, everything from birth to this very moment in time, and then we're going to get into your entire process on how people learn from the best. Sound good?
Dave, thank you. Pleasure. So a little bit about Doug Pill. I grew up on a fairly sizable cattle ranch in the middle of nowhere, northeastern Oregon. At a young age, I went to work for a retail lumber yard for a gentleman who owned a number of yards around the region, and continued there all the way through high school. My senior year, I had been recruited by an organization. They were a material supplier for us, a millwork supplier specifically. Spent about 10 years in that industry. And upon my departure, I went to Palm Springs, of all places, and played golf for about 30 days. And a guy by the name of Rick Murdoch had reached out and heard I had left the organization, asked me what I was going to do. And I told him I wasn't certain at that time. I was going to figure that out. But right now I was playing golf for 30 days. And long story short, I got home. He reached back out and he had said that he was in the process of buying a mobile home manufacturing facility at the time, but was in the process of converting that into a modular plant. It intrigued me. It was something new and interesting and challenging. And so I went to work for Gurdon Enterprises. I spent about a decade there, and we converted that from a HUD code plant into first an IBC and then a UBC product modular facility. And today I'm leading a wonderful team at Prefab Logic, innovating and creating solutions for our modular industry. So Dave, thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself.
No, absolutely. So Doug, where you guys located out of? Give us where you're located, where your office is, all that stuff real quick.
So we're in southwestern Idaho. We're in a bedroom community of the Treasure Valley right next to Boise called Nampa. So this Treasure Valley is kind of grown into one. Everybody knows, I think it's no secret, Idaho's on the map for growth, and we definitely see it and recognize it here today. So yeah, we're just call it the Boise area.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so let's get into this. Here I am, Doug. I'm a builder, developer, fintech, investor, whatever the case is. I have a project that I want to do. I know I want to turn it into a modular or volumetric, product. How do I do that? Like, so where do you fit in? If I say, Doug, is this something you can help me with? Is that something you're gonna open my eyes to a better way of doing things?
So let's touch on 2 things. First is the process in which we take a client through to really get them to the point sooner rather than later, whether it should be built modular, right? And we approach that from what we call a 3-phase approach. First is what we call a phase 1, Dave, and it's a high-level overview. Lana or Hilton, one of my business development representatives, they'll intake the set of plans, the schematic design from you and your architect. And they'll go through and look at not just the design, but requirements to build modular, right? Do the height requirements work for a modular project? Do the setback requirements work for a modular product? Can the product be optimized to be built in a manufacturing environment? So that's what we call a phase 1. That's a complimentary service that we do for development clients around the country. If the answer to that question is yes, From there, we move into what we call a modular feasibility study. I think we've got a video of our modular feasibility study. You can bring that up here whenever you're ready there, Dave. But
sure.
Ultimately, what happens here, guys, is we'll intake the those plan sets, and it's about a 3-week process that we go through. And the end result, the deliverable, is pretty robust. It incorporates not only modular budgets based off current modular construction costs today, it also incorporates transportation costs. It incorporates crane setting, structural connection costs, cribbing costs, things of that nature. Outside of the budgets that are applied to that deliverable, the other value propositions that are recognized there is, number one, it's a pretty defined scope and spec document that is developed for these projects that allows the development client the ability to now know and understand not only their budgets, but everything outside of the modular component. What needs to else happen on that project? They can take those data points, get it to their general contractor, and come up with a budget. Ultimately, what we want to do, again, is drive that client to the point that they can make an educated decision that, yes, they should be building this modular, or no, they should not.
Well, let's show the video.
Okay.
So you guys say a lot in that video. You know, when you think about the project from the start to finish, the timelines, and, you know, the feasibility study. Did I read that right? 3 weeks?
Yeah.
So what I'm just going to let you run with this, because I really want to, you know, hear everything from the beginning and walk us through this whole process and why it makes so much sense.
So Dave, keep in mind the modular feasibility studies evolved considerably over the years, but really the idea is within a given period of time, and we've been able to optimize this today to produce a pretty robust package, as I mentioned. The resources that allow the development client, or whoever our client is in this scenario, to make that educated decision. It incorporates budgets, it incorporates scopes, it incorporates specifications, it incorporates a component of our sprint model schedule that gives that client the ability, the understanding to make good, sound decisions. Because what we don't want to do is kick off a project with a client and 120 days in or 200 days in, them realize that it doesn't pencil.
Right.
That's not to the betterment of the industry for any reason.
Sure. Well, let's talk about this. So let's get into all the different benefits that your model has, right? So you do the feasibility study. You're looking at risk mitigation, compression of time, right? Reduction in pre-construction budgets. I mean, there's so much that goes into this. So if we were to start at the very top, we do the feasibility study. You take maybe they're already pre-designed plans, I'm assuming, maybe they're architectural plans. Is that the feasibility study starts?
Yeah, so our scope really begins at the modular feasibility study when a schematic design has been done by someone, traditionally an architect. Okay, and we get through the modular feasibility study, and let's say the answer is for the client, yes, this project is feasible to go forth with modular. We then enter into what we call our pre-construction services agreement, and that's really the services that we provide. Okay. Our scope today rests in two arenas. One is what we call development pre-con services, and that is to get the product from schematic design all the way through developed into a product that can be manufactured. We have our Tim Messon runs our design division. He's our director of design, and we have our product management team. We're driving and optimizing the pre-con process for our development clients. So from schematic design all the way through architectural state submittal on the development side. Okay.
Right.
And then our ancillary services that we provide in this process are what we call manufacturing pre-construction services, and that really begins at model integration and ends in shop drawing production for our manufacturing partners. And it's a holistic approach to volumetric modular construction. Essentially it eliminates the disjointed process of pre-con. Okay. If you think about historically, Dave, when volumetric modular projects have entered into pre-construction, folks have taken the traditional pre-con methodology, the traditional pre-con approach to pre-construction, utilizing volumetric modular. And the truth is, it's a fail point. Number one, it takes entirely too much time. Okay. If you look at our manufacturers for volumetric modular, let's just say encompass North America alone today. I don't know of any of those manufacturers today that are producing above 50% of their plant's capacity. Okay, one of the reasons that they're not a major force that they're not producing more capacity than that is backlog, right? Viable, on the shelf, ready to build backlog product, and the driving factor for that is pre-con takes too long. Okay, not only does it take too long. Once that product hits the manufacturing environment, it's not been designed and or coordinated to a point to where it's a seamless manufacturing process. Those two stumbling blocks have impeded our industry's ability to grow more than we've studied, more than we really understand, but we know it's been a driving factor. Okay, and so when you take that traditional pre-con approach, here's two things that happen that are a given. Number one, it's going to take too long. Okay, it's not unheard of to go 12, 15, 18, maybe even 20 months in pre-con for projects, right? And number two, when that happens, pre-construction budgets, what do they traditionally do, Dave?
They go over.
They go over, right? Okay. If you look at the history of our industry, the kind of singular value proposition that we've rested on, and this case study has been proven hundreds and hundreds of times over the last 2 decades, is once those modules are on site, the product goes vertical quicker, right? If that was the true singular value proposition that was going to grow our industry, it would have already done it. And it hasn't, because we need to continue to find and uncover and create new value propositions. One of those value propositions is compressing time. Right? There's no reason today that volumetric modular projects can't go through the pre-con process with DFMA, design for manufacturing and assembly methodologies, at a level that's 9 months, 8 months, 7 months, and hopefully in the future even less than that. When we compress time, we reduce budgets. Okay, and so that's, at the end of the day, our industry has to continue to find value propositions to drive volumetric modular construction. Dave, you and I had a conversation about one of your guests that was on earlier this week, right? About finding ways to drive more product into the market, right? That's right. Until we create those values for the manufacturer and the developer, it's not going to happen. We continue to trend somewhere between 3 and 3.5% of starts annually, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been trending there for a long time.
Yeah, and you're right. I think it's going to continue. I want to clarify something too, though, real quick. Let's say I don't have a set of plans and I know I want to go down this route first. Mm-hmm. Can I come to you to help me design what I want? Or can you refer me to who I want to design?
Yeah, and that's a collaborative approach. That's a great question, Dave, because there are a number of architectural firms today that have been through what we call our sprint model process, which we'll talk about in a moment, right? That not only grasp it, they've embraced it. Whether that be, Architects Orange, KTGY, Baron Studios, there's a number of them out there, TCA, that really have embraced doing things differently because they have recognized there is a better way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason I asked that, I'm kind of setting it up for the next part of this conversation, because with the compression of time, with the reduction in budgets and costs and looking at it differently, having these pre-construction, pre-con meetings up front, pre-design meetings up front, drawing it all out up front is part of compressing all of that time, and where the savings actually starts. That's the beginning start of the savings of a project that goes through your process when it does get to the field. So that beginning part is very important. Yes.
It's a great analysis, because history has told us that people recognize that volumetric modular projects take more capital on the front side earlier to build a modular project than it does to build traditionally constructed, correct?
Right.
The design, pre-construction follows that same path. Right? We need to be able to get design decision, design intent done early. And so within our 3 sprint models that we operate in, one of the things that doesn't vary is that within 45 days of us kicking off a project, we've already defined the specifications and integrated the architectural model to a point that we'll have all the stakeholders in 45 days in from kickoff, and we'll literally fly through that architectural model in a VR platform. And really what that allows us to do is to ensure that any changes that need to be made are made early in that process. Okay. Right. So when I see all the stakeholders, the architects involved in that, the owners involved in that, structural engineer, MEP, the question was asked early on, why do we have the structural and MEP consultants involved in the architectural review? Because that design coordination, when the interior designer needs to move or asked to move a receptacle to come in line with the ceiling lights, the cam lights that are in that particular module, and there's a stud pack behind that won't allow them to do that, we need to know that now. That's why that collaboration early on is so vital and so important, so that literally a week after we go through the design review, that virtual reality model, we're issuing design lock and spec lock documents. Immediately following that, we're beginning model integration. Okay. At that point, it's also vitally important not to take a product out to bid to manufacturing too soon. Okay, we've all seen it, right? We've seen manufacturers that spin their wheels, bidding and rebidding and trying to get to the point where they can get under a letter of intent with a product that has not been designed to the point that they should be bidding on it. Okay, a component of our sprint model gets them to the point that they're engaged early, right? Within 60 days, we will have a manufacturer under letter of intent for a development client, so that the balance of that product, they're a collaborative participant in this process. Don't take products to manufacturers too early is my message there.
Yeah, sure. And do you have manufacturers like already? I know you have the relationships, but obviously, I mean, that's a whole nother component to be designing within the capacity of a production line for certain manufacturers, correct?
You bet. We do. We have a number of manufacturing partners that we work with, whether it be on the West Coast, Upper Midwest, throughout the country, that we take product to allow them to bid on, right? And our process gets them to the point to where when they're bidding on a product, they know and understand that it's been vetted. It's designed for manufacturing.
Yeah, and as we all know, not all manufacturers are the same. I mean, there are some manufacturers that do it really well and taking the time to know who they are and who to work with. I see you smirking, right? Because it's so true. It makes a big difference in how you operate and how the success happens on a project.
But by all means, they're an integral stakeholder in the success of a modular product.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so let's talk about this. So here I am, I have all my numbers because I've traditionally built all these units, in previous life of mine. How are you going to do risk mitigation, compress my time? Ultimately, let's talk, is it going to save me money? Right. There's a lot from start to finish here. Why don't you walk us through, how this all works in your sprint model platform and what have you?
You bet. So why don't we take just a moment and talk about how the sprint model was developed? Okay. So this team, the Prefab Logic team, as I mentioned earlier, Dave, is we've got in excess of 150 years of modular experience, whether that be on the design side, the manufacturing side, the site integration component of this product. And so we analyzed a number of years ago what it was taking to produce modular products, and we really centrally focused on the pre-con side because that's what we do. And we came to a conclusion that we've been doing this the same way for the better part of 2 decades, and it wasn't working. It wasn't efficient. It wasn't optimized. And it just so happened that one of my mentors and I were spending some time together, and we were talking about what we had uncovered, what we were understanding through our pre-con process and through this analysis. And he introduced me to a concept that's really centrically focused on the software development industry, and that's agile development. And so I read a book, went out the next morning, picked up a book and read it, and came to the conclusion, at least at that point in time, that this concept, the sprint model, could work in our business model. And so we took that to the team. From there, what we had done is we started to break out every process that it would take to go from schematic design into manufacturing and document that. And really what we did is we laid it out how we'd traditionally done it, right? That's what we normally do as human beings. We do what we know. And we started analyzing this and understanding that, okay, we can't engage, as an example, interior design in month 5, right? Because products already has been designed in month 5, right? We need to engage those stakeholders early and get their deliverables, and what are those deliverables that need to be designed. So we developed this process, and once we got that done, we started to test it. And we were testing it internally with hypothetical projects, throwing product at this process to identify our fail points, if you will. We uncovered a many number of them. And we got to a point last year in 2019, early on, to where we needed to test this with a live product, right? A real world scenario. And it was actually my wife, Jody, was the one that said, if you're going to test this real world, find the most difficult, challenging project you can to intake into the sprint model. And so we did. We took a very large, 372 module project going into a market that we had never done business with, business in the eastern portion of the U.S. And we went from schematic design into architectural state submittal in 47 days.
Wow. How many units?
372 modules. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't tell you that we went through that process in 47 days to say that we can do that consistently, because we can't. Okay. But I wanted to stress the system. I wanted to understand what fail points would be recognized, when they were recognized, and what caused those fail points. And so we learned an enormous amount through those 47 days, Dave. I didn't sleep for 47 days, honestly. Okay. But once we got through that, then we got to the point that we'd taken everything that we had identified and learned, and we had reworked the sprint model. And we got to another point in 2019 to where we said, okay, now is the time to test this through its life cycle, from schematic design into manufacturing. How fast can we do this? How efficiently can we do this? And we took an 82 module project going up into the mountain resort community in California. And we went from architectural schematic design into manufacturing in about 5 months. I also don't tell you to say that we can do every project in 5 months. That wasn't the point. The point was we needed to stress the system to see what could work. Sure. Today, we operate within 3 clearly defined sprint models. We have what we call our standard sprint model. That is for a one-off product. Okay, Dave, you mentioned if you were an architect or you were a developer and you owned a piece of real estate across the street and you wanted to build an affordable housing product on it, you come up with your own schematic design. We're going from architectural states, or going from kickoff meeting, essentially, right, into manufacturing in about 8.5 months today within that sprint model. We have 2 other sprint models that we operate within. One is what we call sole source, to where a manufacturer is actually bringing us the product. Where we're not having to produce the bid package, go out to bid, go through that process. So really what that does, it allows us to reduce 2 or 3 weeks out of that time frame. Okay, so now we're down just under 8 months in that platform. And then we're beta testing right now a process that we call our replicated product sprint model. And really what that is we've built a product for a client prior to, right? Now we're taking the vast majority of that product and replicating it. Different structural, different seismic, different locations, but for all intents and purposes, the design intent is the same. And we're producing that in about 7 months. okay, from schematic design into manufacturing. So there's the compression of time component, right?
Right.
But and that reduces budgets, right? That is a risk mitigation component for a developer, because number one, they know that they're going to get it done sooner. It reduces their carrying costs. It reduces change orders. It reduces everything that if a project takes 12 to 18, 15, 20 months, we know that the costs are going to bloat. Those budgets are going to bloat, right? Okay. Outside of that, the process is designed with that agile sprint concept, right? And it's coordinated at a level for DFMA. So that's design for manufacturing and assembly. And for us, design for manufacture is coordinated to a level that when it hits the manufacturing environment, Dave, there's no questions, right? It's been, that product has been designed, integrated, whether it be for an automated manufacturing partner or a manual labor manufacturing partner. It really doesn't matter, right? The level of integration and complexity, clash detection has to be recognized, whoever's going to be building that product. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. But I think this is the key that unlocks the real value, the efficiency and speed to modular and volumetric construction. And that is the prior planning, the using the BIM worlds, the virtual worlds, having a system in place like the sprint model platform, and you have different levels of it. So you can predict what's going to happen and when it's going to happen, and the trades can predict what's going to happen when it's going to happen. And this is part of that whole process of visualizing it and seeing it through the entire process, not only physically in front of you, but also you can financially start figuring out what the true costs of these things really are, which in turn, in the end, to me would mean you probably don't need as big of a contingency fund if you're a developer or a builder, and you can put that back into your project or your pocket.
One would hope not, right? By all means, it's, right. As a company, we've really taken the approach that yes, we are a wood frame volumetric modular pre-construction services company, both for the developer as well as the manufacturer. But the truth is, Dave, this team, we're solution providers. Yep. Right? And we're constantly optimizing and improving the process for benefit of the industry. And as the example for that is, you'd mentioned the trades, right? It's not just designed for manufacturing, and we forget about the site integration component, because a successful volumetric modular product has to be coordinated at a level that it works in manufacturing. But also, when those modules begin arriving on site, it's a seamless integration. There's no one standing around asking questions. There's not an electrician standing in the corridor trying to figure out how to run this or complete that. And so one of the solutions that this team has come up with is we actually have begun as an optional service for our development clients. We will actually model the corridors for all of the MEPs. We'll do that at a level that will allow them and their sub-consultants, their sub-trades, to actually fly through that to give a visual representation. Outside of that, and giving them the understanding, the other additional value proposition to this is that it allows for a materials takeoff list to be produced out of that model integration, so that we can provide for our development client the ability to know that within level 2 or level 5 or combined as a building, there are 683 2x gang boxes. There's 5,819 lineal feet of 14-2 wire. Right. Everything has been modeled to the point from termination to completion, supply to completion, if you will, so that there's never a question of what it should cost to actually complete those corridors, because you and I both know numbers that we're seeing in the industry today in given markets, they're obtuse on what those completion costs are running.
Oh, 100%. And I have to tell you that the purchasing department's going to love it, right? They know exactly what's going on. So who needs to connect, with Prefab Logic sooner? Is it the investor, the developer, the architect? And then after that, I want to jump in. We got some people asking some questions, so we'll go to some comments and questions here in a minute. Perfect.
So I would say that first off, Dave, know that we do an enormous amount of education for the industry. And so if an investor has a question, wants to learn more about modular construction, by all means. In terms of having a product ready to vet and move forward, It's either the architect or the developer, preferably when they've got a set of schematic designs.
Yeah, love it. All right, so here we go. Let's hop in here and say hello to a few people. Doug, what do you think?
By all means, good morning.
Good morning. All right, John joining us. Looking forward to the show. Good to see you, John. We got Henry Mickelberg. For clarity, the cost of the full modular feasibility study is a client charge sitting outside the pre-construction period.
The cost of full modular feasibility study is a client charge sitting outside. Yes, Henry, great question. So that happens early on in our process. Again, we start with a phase one overview, and then the modular feasibility study is the next step, and that is far earlier on before we start pre-con.
Yeah, love it. Perfect. Thank you for that. Thank you, Henry. Good to have you on the show today. Joe Hutchins says, hello, Doug Pill. How are you?
Joe, good morning. I hope you're warm down in South Carolina today because it's cold in Boise.
All right. Absolutely. Moving on down the line. Okay. Joe actually has a question for us today. Pre-con should be, or he has a comment. Pre-con should be seconds, not months. That doesn't sound like Joel, does it?
Joel, we're working towards that every day, my friend.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to share some of the banner with these guys just because it's fun. Henry's busting his chops. Joel, it's Boise. It's a 2D old school thing. I love it. All right, here we go. We got Adrian Mitchell's up. He's making a comment with Joel. Joel Hutchins, we agree, Joel. We are using the AI to help modular companies and their clients, architects get there using our Creo modular software. Happy to show one day. Let me go through and see, Adrian. All right. All right. Very familiar with, oh my goodness, going down. All right. Andrew Seeley. Why do architectural design firms' plans need so much integration to be considered for off-site? What is the integral value of these designs that forces an original plan to such different paths from what makes sense for off-site?
Andrew, I don't think the architectural design firm needs integration. It's actually the truth is what we're intaking, or what a pre-con company should be intaking from an architect, is really nothing more than schematic design. The model integration that's produced is not in conjunction with the architect. That's really done for the manufacturer.
Yeah. And it's funny, Anthony Goudet is joining us as well, and he commented on Andrews as well. The expert can answer, but I can say that it is not so much divergence as the need for accuracy that results in the need for a cohesive project delivery. So I would think you second that. Perfect. All right. So there's a lot of banner going on here, Doug, amongst the participants in the audience here. So I'm going to keep reviewing those things. So let's walk through and really break this down, right? If we were to say, and go through risk mitigation, we talked a little bit on those. What I really want to do is drive home all the different points that this really does. So under risk mitigation, what are the big risk mitigations that you're seeing?
Compression of time, reduction of budgets. I'm never going to say elimination of change orders because some of that is out of control by the stakeholders. But when you're, before you press go and start really model integration and design for manufacturing and assembly, when all of those answers have been provided, all the decisions have been made, and you can do it in a parallel path that compresses time, that's an enormous risk mitigation component for the developer. The other risk mitigation component is once those modules arrive on site, you're mitigating risk because it goes up faster, it goes up more efficient. If you think about in the manufacturing environment, right, comparative to an on-site project, if you're building a 5-story above 2 podium traditionally constructed, and there's a question about how and where this MEP connection works traditionally on site, right. You've got 2 or 3 folks standing up on that 3rd floor, they're looking at a set of plans, figuring it out. Right. In a manufacturing environment, when you've got 3 folks sitting there trying to figure it out, everybody up to that person, that stage, that station, and everybody after that station is stopped because it's a manufacturing line. It doesn't stop. Once that manufacturing process starts, it doesn't stop. And so that gets expensive really, really quick.
Yeah, it really does. And that's where the planning comes in to make sure that everybody knows exactly what the pieces of the puzzle are and when they go on that line. Because you are absolutely right. If they got to pull a module from a line, it destroys the whole process.
It's either pull it from the line and move beyond it and have to figure it out later,
Yep.
Or the entire process just comes to a stop.
Sure.
Yeah.
So walking us through, all right, so now we have it designed, we have our costs under control, we know what's going on. Talk to us a little bit about what's happening on site at this point, because part of the entire feasibility study and pulling all of this stuff together, do you help coordinate who, what, when, and where on site to help these builders, developers?
I wouldn't say we coordinate the on-site. That really falls within the GC scope. But one of the things that we've done is brought the GC into this process, brought all the stakeholders into the process. As an example, early on in the process, we host design coordination meetings. Historically, you would ask the question, why would a GC need to be involved in design coordination meetings? Yeah. Well, because when a decision is made that affects them in the second week of design, it's important for them to know and understand that they need to be prepared for that on site, right? And so that we bring the GC in early, and we're there as a resource through the entire project for them, whether that be coordinating with a structural for rooftop decks, rooftop patios, whatever that might look like, exterior building maintenance, all those things. Right. Are coordinated with those folks so that when the products arrive on site, that's all been taken care of.
Yeah, and they're already pre-coordinated in their own minds. The trades knows what's going on, right? So I mean, if we're talking about that with these pre-construction meetings, it's a big deal because that means that your trades, your MEP contractors, right, if the GC brings them in, are all part of this entire process up front and know what to expect on site when these units arrive to get the job done, regardless of where it's at in the country.
Dave, one of the ways that we've been able to accomplish that is we today in our projects host 3 separate virtual reality reviews, one for the architectural side, which we've talked about. And then after that, when we get into model integration, we will actually host a VR review for that manufacturer, as well as the supervisors on the floor within that manufacturer, so that months in advance, they get a visual understanding of what they're going to be building. And the truth is, they have questions about it as well. Right? How does this soffit tie into the end wall? What are we doing with that stud pack to tie in for shear? The folks that are actually building in the manufacturing environment need to know far in advance before they look at a set of shop drawings. So we do that on the structural side. And then parallel with that, we do that for the MEPs as well. The folks that will be installing the MEPs in the manufacturing environment, they need to go through that same process. Right? Give them the ability to know and understand what's coming at them and ask questions long before it hits the production environment.
Love it. Perfect answer. All right, let me go in here. We have another question that I want to get to. Judy Donnell's joining us. I saw it pop up. Hey, Judy, thanks for joining us. Judy Donnell is the chair of all the associate members at the National Association of Home Builders. I think there's 88,000 members. If I got it wrong, Judy, don't beat me up. But also, Judy is with 84 Lumber, which is a fully woman-owned and operated company, which I did not know until recently. So, Judy, it's always a pleasure when you join us. Thank you so much.
Dave, Judy's point, her message there is vital and it's true. Really, what we talk about is it takes a group of folks that want to do things differently, right? Yeah. It takes an architect that wants to approach what they do differently because their scope changes in a volumetric modular project. Okay, it takes a development group that wants to do it differently. It takes a structural engineer that wants to do it differently, a mechanical engineer. All the stakeholders that are involved have to approach this differently to ensure a good, successful modular project in the end.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us, Doug, how is prefab logic changing the hearts and minds of developers and people out there? So you have this great system in place. We're still only 3 to 4% maybe of the volumetric modular. Let's kind of talk about what is it going to take? I mean, there is definitely a change happening, and there's more attention being drawn to offsite and what we're doing. But like you said earlier, it's not just about how many floors you can put straight up. There's all these other parts to this kit. What is it that we need to do?
I think ultimately, really what it boils down to, Dave, is this. Outside of the daily operations that we do, education, product work product, process improvement, we as an industry have to continue to define and execute value propositions that are outside of that traditional singular value proposition. A modular goes up faster once it arrives on site. Okay. Joel had some comments on here. He and I have had a number of conversations. Adrian with his platform, we've had a number of conversations. The value propositions have to be able to be, number one, quantifiable. Okay? And number two, make an impact on the project for the stakeholders. And really what I mean by stakeholders here is the development client and the manufacturer. Okay. When we continue to do that as an industry, which is what we focus on, right, being that solution provider, whether it be the development of the sprint model, whether it be the corridor modeling to provide those material takeoff lists so that general contractors can now figure out that it shouldn't cost $130,000 to finish a corridor per module. It should cost $8,000. Okay. Those are the things that are going to begin driving down construction costs. And at the end of the day, for our industry, whether it be high density housing or hospitality, we have to provide those additional value propositions.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us, Prefab Logic, where is there a sweet spot on the type of projects you guys you really excel at?
Great question. For us, we've realized that we struggle with smaller projects. For a number of reasons, but really what it boils down to is pre-con for a 30 module project takes not too much of a different period of time than a 100 module project. And a manufacturer, if they're producing even 3 floors a day, they're going to be through a 30 module project in 10 days. Okay. So for us, we're kind of in that 80 to 400. I mean, we're working on projects today that are pushing that 400 module project range. Yep. But somewhere between 80 to that 400 module project is where we work well in.
Perfect. We got some more questions. You ready?
You bet.
Henry, he looks so astute with this whole black outline I'm using today, Henry. Is the VR model used purely as a visual representation, or does the model output all the project data? And how does the use of Sprint instead of, say, BIM 360 workflow integrate into the model?
So, Henry, your question is the VR is actually nothing more than a representation of the work product that's already produced. Okay, so it's within the Revit BIM platform, but what we're doing is extrapolating the visual out of that platform for review, rather than taking the visual and trying to work on the other side of that, if that makes sense.
Yep. Perfect. Made sense to me. All right, Adrian, I think we answered this one earlier, Adrian, but we'll touch on it one more time. Do you have a preferred network of architects that you prefer to work with, or can a new client bring their own architect with them when they work with Prefab Logic?
Adrian, great question. And so we work with architects from all around the country. I would say that, I don't know if I'd quantify them as preferred, but we have definitely architectural firms that we work with repetitively because they know and understand what it takes to build modular. But as Lana and Hilton, my business development team, can tell you, we're constantly educating new architects and new general contractors.
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant education. I don't think it's ever going to end, and that's a good thing. Anthony Goudet made a comment here. Let's just put it up because I think it's very valuable. Yes, Doug Pill, the value proposition needs to be elaborated, particularly for developers who are concerned with other delivery metrics, aka control, operating radius, the sector's perception by the financial industry, etc. 100%.
Yeah.
Always good comments from these folks. So thank you, everybody. All right. So, Doug, if there's anything you wanted to leave us with today, because we're pushing almost 50 minutes, it goes fast, doesn't it?
It's gone by fast.
I feel like we haven't even touched on the surface of all this yet. But, if there's something, whether it's builders, developers, architects, fintech, tech companies, people like Joel and that are coming up with new solutions themselves, what's the biggest takeaway that you want people to have from Prefab Logic and what you guys are doing, if you were to sum it up for us?
Yeah, I would say, our hashtag is driving this, and that is there is a better way. Volumetric modular projects, we believe to our core are the future of construction. For us, it's about making decisions early. It's about driving the design intent to a point to where the balance of the team can press go and not look back. One of the examples that we often talk about for stakeholders, we'll utilize a structural and MEP group individually as an example, right? Historically, when projects kick off, you've got your structural firm sitting there, you've got your mechanical, your MEP firm sitting there, and they're ready to go, but those decisions haven't been made, and so budgets are being burned early on in the process. Within our sprint model, really, other than a project coordinator from a structural or an MEP perspective, they don't kick off until sprint 2. So the result of that is that they're not spending that, they're not burning that budget. They're not burning that budget until they need to start burning it. And then once they kick off, they're laser focused. They're driven by accountability in terms of timing, deliverables, and schedules, so that this project can be done from a DFMA standpoint. So that would be my message to the team: is there's a better way. Let's do things differently moving forward.
Yeah, we all agree with you there, 100%. So I had an idea. Wouldn't it be a lot of fun if we could do this show and bring in one of your virtual experiences of a project visually on the screen here, so we can show people the value of what it is you're showing your clients?
Let's get it scheduled. In fact, we can break it down into 3. We can do an architectural, and for a little while during the same show, we can do a structural and an MEP. By all means, let's make that happen.
Yeah, I think that would be super valuable. What do you guys think out there? And ladies, guys, ladies, women, men, whoever is watching, what do you think? I mean, do you think that would be a valuable thing to show people? Because we do spend a lot of time talking about DFMA. We talk about the virtual world. We talk about BIM, right? And today we're talking about your sprint models. I think maybe it's time that we stop talking and we show some visuals on these. If we can bring the built environment, the virtual built world into our environment to show people, I think would be a very powerful tool.
Dave, we actually call it a digital twin. We build the project twice.
That's right.
So we built it first digitally, long before it ever hits the manufacturing environment. So I'd be more than happy to do that. I think it would be a great experience and might be educational for some folks.
Yeah, I definitely want to work on that. All right. So another thing that came up, preferred network of manufacturers. So is that something that you go over the client with?
By all means, early on, we've got a pool of manufacturers that bid our projects, and it's really that decision is driven by a couple of buying factors. Number one, of course, budgets are driven by that decision, but beyond that is does the manufacturer have capacity when the development client needs the product, right? Yeah. Can the manufacturer's already been vetted? Do they build a quality product? Are their financials sound? All of those things, right? And then lastly, which is very important, we tell our development clients often, this is a long marriage, right? Is this someone that you can build a relationship with to ensure a successful outcome? And so and there's other driving factors there, but those are the big ones, right? Can they build a relationship? Do they have the capacity when you need your product? And does the budget fit within the budget?
Well, I mean, that's it. We tout this all the time. The manufacturers are an extension of your team. Mm-hmm. You have to look at it that way. I mean, they're with you from start to finish, all the way through a project in most cases. And I think a lot of people look at it differently. They shop manufacturers and they don't look at it as, listen, you're not shopping manufacturers, you're adding to your team. And there's a team of hundreds and hundreds of people that can help you be successful. And I think that's a very big deal. And I think Judy says it takes a village. And all right, let's see here. We got, well, there you go. Anthony Goudet, you have my vote on model-oriented episodes. Perfect. There you go. We got a thumbs up on that. And Judy Donnell, hey, views and how cool that I could also use for workforce development and student chapters. Absolutely, Judy. So we've been talking about that. How do we use this in the virtual environment to teach students and bring people in to our industry? So that's another great idea. So Doug, I think we are going to potentially be the first ones on LinkedIn Live to ever bring the virtual built world, the digital twin, live on this platform. I think we should do it sooner than later so somebody doesn't run with it.
Let's make it happen. We can make it there.
I love it. All right. Well, listen, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Doug, thank you so much for joining us today. I look forward to having you back on the show. So it's been absolutely awesome.
Dave, it's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Let's looking forward to that next one.
Yeah, I am as well. So, all right, everybody, we are live 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock and Saturday morning. So I guess it's really 6, but Saturday's always 9-ish, depending on what's happening in my family world here at the house. Pancakes always come first. So with that said, I'm Dave Cooper. Thank you for watching today. Doug, thank you for watching. If anybody needs to get a hold of Doug, Prefab Logic. Did I just say, Doug, thank you for watching? I did, didn't I? Doug, thank you for joining. If anybody needs to get a hold of Doug, just look him up, Prefab Logic. Doug, thank you so much. All right, everybody. We will see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I'm Dave Cooper. This is another product spotlight episode, Prefab Logic, the best in the industry. Take care. Hang there, Doug. I'll be right back to you.
Thanks, Dave.